This video is strictly for educational purposes. We share these incredible true viewer stories in our own words to provide real educational value to our audience. Today, we're diving deep into how important families are to each other, and we'll be learning a massive lesson in women's empowerment. Let's get right into it. Meet Harper. For years, she was pushed out, ignored, and completely alienated by the two people who should have had her back: her enabling father, Vance, and her incredibly toxic stepmother, Lorraine. Lorraine wasn't just mean, she was a calculated manipulator who made it her daily mission to erase Harper from Vance's life. And Vance? He just stood by, avoiding conflict and letting it happen. Eventually, Harper did what any strong woman would do. She walked away to protect her peace and built an independent, successful life entirely on her own. Then, out of nowhere, the script flipped. Vance passed away unexpectedly. It was a tragic shock, but the real drama started days later when the financial dust settled. Vance hadn't bothered to prepare a will. He died completely intestate. Enter Lorraine, strutting around the property like she had just won a massive lottery jackpot. She arrogantly assumed the entire estate was automatically hers. We're talking about a fully paid-off, beautiful house, 2 expensive cars, and a healthy portfolio of assets. In Lorraine's mind, Harper was permanently out of the picture, making her the undisputed queen of the castle. She was already bragging to the neighbors about her permanent financial freedom. But Harper wasn't the powerless girl she used to be. Instead of picking a messy, emotional fight with a woman who thrived on drama, Harper did something far more effective. She did her homework. Here's the legal lesson of the day. In their specific state, when a parent dies without a will and leaves behind a child from a previous relationship, the surviving spouse does not automatically inherit everything. The state law strictly dictates that the estate must be divided between the current spouse and the deceased's children. Lorraine was lounging in a house that legally belonged in large part to Harper. Did Harper call her stepmother to give her a heads up? Absolutely not. She stayed dead silent. Harper let Lorraine get completely comfortable painting the walls and driving those cars, while she quietly hired a sharp, no-nonsense estate attorney. The legal storm was brewing, and Lorraine had zero clue what was heading straight for her front door. The moment Harper gave the green light, her attorney didn't waste a single day. He officially opened probate, formally notifying the courts, and Lorraine, that Vance had a living, breathing daughter who was legally entitled to her rightful share of his assets. When that official legal letter landed in Lorraine's mailbox, the fallout was absolutely explosive. Lorraine immediately grabbed her phone, calling Harper for the first time in years. The voicemails were a wild, frantic mix of screaming, demanding, and insisting that Harper was making a gigantic mistake. Lorraine claimed the house was completely hers, the cars were hers, and Harper had absolutely no right to interfere with her life. But Harper didn't engage. She let every single angry call go straight to voicemail. She knew that engaging with a toxic person only feeds their negative energy and gives them power. This is a massive lesson in personal empowerment. You do not have to argue with people who refuse to respect your boundaries. You simply let the law do the heavy lifting. Lorraine scrambled to hire her own lawyer, fully expecting to easily crush Harper in court. But the law doesn't care about Lorraine's arrogance or entitlement. Her attorney had to sit her down and explain the harsh, unbreakable truth. Because Vance died intestate, meaning without a will, the state law strictly mandated a 50-50 split of the entire estate between the current spouse and the child from a previous relationship. Suddenly, Lorraine wasn't the undisputed owner of a paid-off, beautiful home. She was co-owning it with the independent stepdaughter she had spent years trying to erase. The legal options were simple, but absolutely brutal for Lorraine. Option A: she could buy out Harper's 50% share of the house and the cars in cold, hard cash. Option B: if she couldn't afford the buyout, the estate would be legally forced into a sale, and the cash proceeds would be split right down the middle. Here was the ultimate catch. Lorraine had never worked a day since marrying Vance. She had zero independent savings, absolutely no way to secure a mortgage on her own, and definitely no cash to buy Harper out. the sheer panic began to set in. The massive home she had just been bragging about was now a ticking clock. Harper held all the power, and she was perfectly content to wait as the legal machinery slowly but surely cornered her former bully. The absolute reality of the situation finally crashed down on Lorraine. Since she had spent her entire marriage to Vance refusing to work, she had zero independent income. She had no personal savings, no established credit history to her name, and absolutely no ability to secure a massive mortgage on her own. Buying out Harper's 50% share of the estate in cold, hard cash was nothing but a pipe dream. When the legal deadline officially expired, the law stepped in and did exactly what it was designed to do. Harper's attorney filed the final motions, and a probate judge ordered the immediate, legally forced sale of the beautiful, paid-off house and both of the expensive cars Lorraine had been parading around in. Imagine the absolute shock on Lorraine's face when a court-appointed real estate agent showed up at the front door to hammer a massive "for sale" sign right into the perfectly manicured front lawn. For weeks, Lorraine had to endure the ultimate humiliation. Complete strangers were constantly walking through the hallways, inspecting the bedrooms, and judging the property. Every single open house was a brutal, undeniable reminder that she wasn't the untouchable queen of the castle anymore. All those years she spent maliciously pushing Harper out of the family and emotionally manipulating Vance, it had all caught up to her in a massive, unstoppable wave of legal reality. Because Lorraine had never bothered to build an independent life or career for herself, she was now completely backed into a corner. She was forced to pack up her entire life into cardboard boxes and move out of the massive home she arrogantly thought was hers forever. She was now entirely reliant on her half of the forced sale proceeds just to figure out a basic, much smaller place to live. Her days of living in unearned luxury were officially over. Harper, on the other hand, handled this entire intense process with total grace, silent strength, and unbothered power. She didn't show up to the house to gloat, she didn't throw a petty tantrum on social media, and she absolutely refused to lower herself to Lorraine's toxic, dramatic level. She simply hired a phenomenal, no-nonsense attorney, stood completely firm in her legal rights, and let the strict inheritance laws of her state work perfectly on her behalf. Within a few short months, the house and the cars successfully sold. The estate was fully liquidated, the legal fees were settled, and Harper received a massive, life-changing check for her rightful legal half of her father's assets. But for Harper, it was never really about the money. It was about pure principle. It was about a strong woman knowing her absolute worth, refusing to be bullied out of her father's legacy, and finally taking back the power that had been sidelined for so many painful years. So, what did this true story teach us today? What is the real educational value here? First and foremost, it highlights the absolute necessity of love, deep respect, and open communication within a family unit. Ignoring toxic behavior like Vance did doesn't keep the peace. It only creates deep emotional wounds and absolute chaos later on. Families are supposed to protect and uplift each other. Second, this is a brilliant, real-world lesson in women's empowerment and understanding your legal rights. We learn that you don't have to fight fire with fire or engage in messy, screaming drama to win. Instead, empower yourself through education, understand the laws of your state, know exactly what you are entitled to, and let the legal system do the heavy lifting for you. Always protect your peace, establish rock-solid boundaries, and never, ever let a bully intimidate you out of what is legally and rightfully yours.